Okay, it's 6:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order.
Okay.
All right, roll call, Kelsey?
Yes, Mr. Glassner,
Here.
Mr.
Here.
Ms. Perez,
Present?
Mr. Day,
Present.
Mr. Locklear.
Excused, I see.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to the approval of the November 1st meeting minutes that are in the packet.
I'll move approval. Second.
I'm good.
Okay, I've screwed this up. All those in favor? Is that all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Motion passes. Meeting minutes are approved. We'll move on to staff reports. Kelsey?
Yes. Just a few things for you tonight. I did want to start by just introducing our new committee member, Mr. Keith Capizzi. I'm not sure, did you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest here in the committee?
Keith Capizzi. I'm the senior pastor at Cliff Zion Community Church. I've lived in Cocoa Beach. I came here with friends of mine to surf in 1973 and fell in love with it and decided I needed to stay. And I love fishing. I grew up fishing. I grew up sailing as a kid. I grew up surfing as a kid and snorkeling and just been around water my whole life. Love water. Love the beach. I love our environment. I know I don't know, my generation growing up surfing, we were really into keeping the beach clean. The surfers back then felt like it was our responsibility to keep the beach beautiful and pick up the trash and look after it. And I've always had that attitude. So when I heard about this committee, I thought it would be a perfect fit for my passion and my love for the environment. I guess that's it. Any questions about me?
Where did you move from originally?
Long Island, New York. Grew up on the Great South Bay, surfing Gilgo Beach and the Hamptons.
My dad's from Massapequa.
Oh, neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real water. Long Island's all about water.
All right, well, thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of additional items tonight. We will be doing our Christmas light recycling program. As I mentioned at the last meeting, those bins will be out by the end of this week. There will be one at the Public Works facility, and Tiny Turtle has also offered to host one as well. So these are Christmas lights that are not working, that someone's looking to recycle or dispose of. We don't want them to go to the landfill, and we don't want them to go to the waste management plant. They can't handle they can't handle the Christmas lights. So we'll take them for the city, and we will handle them properly and make sure they're recycled properly. And lastly, at the January meeting, there's a few kind of regular items I just want to put on your guys' radar. They'll appear on the agenda. We will be electing a new chair and a new vice chair. And you will also see the end of year report from this year will need to be approved at the January meeting. And then I'm hoping to also maybe think about any presentations the group would like to schedule throughout the year, anything you guys want to hear about from, lagoon-related matters, sustainability-related matters, anything like that, so we can work on scheduling those for future meetings. And then that's all I have for you.
Thank you very much. So then we'll move on to new business. On the agenda, we have the 2024 Community Sustainability Award. In your packet is the text that we used for the 2023 award. I thought it went really, really well.
Yeah.
So these were all of the sort of the description of the award, what the point of it was, why we were doing it, and then the process to nominate someone or some organization for the award. And we have our timeline there as well. And then our evaluation criteria. We did have 4 contenders last year, and we had discussed some topics we wanted to refine or change for the award moving forward. So in the packet, there is a list there of the things that we had mentioned that we wanted to change or add or tweak. And you'll also notice that the timeline we went with last year, the nomination period opened February 1st. And I don't recall, Kelsey, what was the lead up to the nomination period opening? Did we have something on the city website, or how did we kind of put a call out?
I'm trying to remember how we did this. I think we just posted it saying it's live now. I can go back and look, though.
Okay.
I don't totally remember.
Because I think that's going to be something we'll have to address next meeting, definitely, to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. I think Kelsey put together a good list of the things that we came up with last time around. And again, one thing I was looking at was the form itself. And I don't know if anybody's got a copy of it here, unfortunately, you probably don't. But as you remember, there was the nomination information, who was nominating? Was it actually the people themselves, or was somebody else nominated? You were nominating somebody for somebody else. And in the literature, I think it says that you need to have a letter from the person you're nominating, or group that you're nominating, that they're aware of this. And I would suggest that actually putting that on the form, that if you're nominating it for somebody else, that they need to have a letter of approval. And my notes on this were that on several of them, they didn't explain whether there were any cooperators or collaborators, how long the program had been in existence, and is it planned to continue? And again, the impacts locally and quantification of those if they could. So again, that was, I think on all four of them, I think I had those same questions on almost every one of them. So that might be a wise thing to have a little bit more look. And I think, Kelsey, one of your comments here was that, that you listed was that it needs to be perhaps a little bit more language on what we're expecting out of the application form.
We had said here that we were expecting to see the information presented to a high standard. So not just, there were some applications that had the same two sentences
Right, exactly.
repeated. So we were looking for very specific answers written in a formal manner that you would, submit to some.
That clarified what they were
Yes.
doing, how they were involved, all that sort of stuff, rather than saying, yep, we did this.
Right, and we wanted to make that clearer in the instruction.
Very good idea.
And to that point, we had said maybe a suggested minimum word count.
Yeah, I'm not, any case. They could lead to some verbosity, shall we say.
Well, we have a cap on it too, though. We
Yeah,
put-
3,000 characters, if I'm not mistaken.
It varied by section, 3,000, 1,500.
Yeah, okay.
So I say that we talk first about what we want to change in the language of describing the award and what our expectations are, and then we can talk about sort of how we're going to run going through those, because I know, Jamie, that was some of the things that we wanted to change, sort of the process of how we did the scoring and the presenting and all of that.
Correct.
So let's first do the changes to the award itself, just some of the language we would like to change. And then we'll talk about the process.
You're talking about the package that,
Yes.
part 1, 2,
So,
and 3, or whatever, yeah.
Bob, would you like to take a stab at some of the things that we just mentioned, some of the specific questions that you had, and incorporating those into the language of the application? And then next meeting, we can review it and approve it or fix what we need to fix there.
Yeah,
So we just
okay.
have a fresh draft with just adding those new things that we had discussed.
Okay, I'll be glad to do that.
Yes, thank you.
I'll send you an editable version, and then you can add it.
Great, yeah, send me a Word version, and I can play with that.
Okay, so then the things that we're looking for then are just being more specific about the standard that we expect of the language.
Okay.
You have and the questions that you had, and add those as well. We had a question here, should we list types of projects we are looking for in the guidebook? I don't know. Does anyone have an opinion on that? I don't remember specifically what we were thinking. I don't want to limit anyone by putting, saying, here's some examples, but if they're so far outside of that, they would think, I don't know if this would qualify or if this makes sense. I just feel like that puts kind of a box around it. I don't know.
Are we changing how we're gonna vote for it?
Yes, so we're gonna,
So it's gonna be like anonymous? Like they're not gonna know who scored what?
okay, so last time we brought our scores here and then we announced them and tallied them live on the screen. So this time we are going to send them to you ahead of time, Kelsey? Is that what our plan, is that how we had
Yep.
said it?
That's what I would recommend.
Okay, so
Yes.
we're gonna score them at home or wherever. We're going to send you our scores, and you will tally those and present the tally at the meeting where we discuss.
Yeah.
Okay,
I do just want to make sure that we all know that it is, your scores are public record.
Right.
So your paper that you turn into me will
Yes.
be part of the public record, but it won't be you reading your scores aloud at the meeting.
yes.
I think one other thing that we talked about a bit was having a special meeting to kind of discuss these ahead of time. So, it's good to hear others' viewpoints on these things because it may change your score. And,
You can have a discussion, say, like you said, the day before, the
Or,
meeting
yeah.
before we have to vote, to
right,
submit our
or a
scores.
week before, something like that, so you get a
Or
chance
even
to
that,
sit- yeah.
yeah, I just,
So we want to do a special meeting
Just to
before, and
review.
then, we did a special meeting for the tally too, didn't we?
because I mean, you're right, when they were discussing and they were giving their presentations and all that, I did change a few of my scores on the spot.
So you guys met to discuss, as you're talking about, that was on April 5th, and then on the 12th is when you submitted scores. So I believe it was a week later.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll meet to discuss and then go away and do our scores, and then a week
Send
later, it'll be
them.
the report out of what the results are.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Gosh.
Right, and so then at that meeting, the second meeting, we will just, if there's a tie, because we did end up having a tie last time. So in that case, and then we address that in the final meeting. There's a question here, can the same project reapply year after year? How do we want to address that?
My first response would be no.
Well, if it's something that somebody's made some progress on, or some improvements on, or taken comments that we made about it and improved their application, I don't think
I
we can.
guess.
I'd have a hard time prohibiting them from being submitting again. But if it's going to come in exactly the same, it's probably going to get exactly the same score, so,
The city's already recognized them.
yeah,
We recognize them again when they've already been recognized.
yeah.
And it hinders someone else's ability to step up. Just a thought.
Well, we don't have any limit on how many people can submit, so,
Okay.
so that I don't think is a problem. It's just if it was a problem, it was a project that did not make the grade last time, and
That's true.
it's the same
Right.
thing.
I think, if you won, I don't think you should be allowed to submit again,
Yeah,
obviously.
okay.
But if you did not win,
Right.
I think it would be unfair to say, maybe the next year your project actually would be the top, or
I agree.
maybe not, I don't know, but,
I agree.
And again, they may include additional information which may help them, so, help them.
right, they refine their
Yeah.
application, or,
Yes.
so then I think we will say if projects that have won are not eligible to be re-entered, but if you have entered in the past, you can enter again.
But isn't that, so the teacher won, right?
Yes.
So, but every year it's a new grade of students.
It's her project, though, and
Okay.
she won, so
Okay.
let's give someone
Yeah.
else a shot.
And
Should we
stepping-
put a limit on it, 5 years, maybe? You can reapply in 5 years if you've done something? Do we want to say something like that?
I mean.
And stepping back to our discussion session.
Or say she can't do the same topic to enter.
True.
Right.
She can still enter, but just do
Project.
a different
Right,
project.
Different project.
Right,
So an individual can be nominated for a different project.
right.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that's fair, too.
And let me step back to our discussion session for a moment, because I think in our discussion session, we may have a number of questions about that the submitter needs to answer. And those probably would come up in the discussion session, but we could get, if they could get a reply to us before our final scoring, that would be, obviously helpful to them. Because I know I submitted a bunch of questions, and I think some of them got back, at least one of them got back with us, and some of the others did not. So again, if there are questions, I think that needs to come up in our discussion session, needs to submit it to the applicants, and have a very short turnaround time for them to get back with us if we're going to score them, final score them a week later. Because you need to, if there are questions, you need to let them have a chance to answer them, I think.
So last year, we had March 29th to submit any questions we had for nominees.
Okay.
April 4th was the last day for them to give those responses back to us, and then we had the April 5th meeting where we discussed.
Okay, that's fine. That's
Okay.
good. That covers what I need.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so you can reapply unless you've won. If you have won as an individual, if you have another project, you can reapply,
Sure.
and I think that covers it.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, and let me see if there's anything else here. Okay, anyone else have any other things they want to address with this?
I'm not so sure about the minimum word count, what would that be? And so some things can be explained in very few words, well, others you have to be.
I think we kind of floated that because there were those responses where it was like 10 words.
Yeah, or
And so I
less.
think we were saying that to kind of give more of a, but I think if we change the language to just,
Right.
we're looking for comprehensive answers.
Encourage them to be detailed,
Yes.
yes.
I think that should cover it. All right. So then, Bob, thank you for
Thank
your
you.
future efforts to add some of that language there, and we will address that at the next meeting. Okay.
And we really haven't specified the type of projects we're looking for, so that's just kind of open.
I think for now,
Yeah.
I think it makes sense.
If it's
to leave
something
it
that's
open.
totally off the beam, then it won't get many points.
Agreed. All right, does anyone else have anything to add for the award? Okay, then we'll go back to that at the next meeting, and we will move on to old business and address the sustainability plan update. So we have the community outreach survey results in your packet.
So there's two different ones. There's one where it says 11 responses submitted, and then there's just says Cocoa Beach, non-residents, I see. All right. never mind.
And Kelsey, are these the
That is the online results.
Okay,
So those are current as of Monday. It didn't make it into your packet,
Okay.
but it was reposted yesterday, so there may be more responses by now. And I do just want to remind everybody that the online survey has kind of a different response, like a way that you can respond to it. It's not ranking necessarily. It's just ranking your interest in each topic. So if they put a 1, for example, it was not interested. A 2 was they're unsure. 3 is neutral. 4 is interested, and 5 is highly interested.
How many people did this?
I believe the one in front of you, 25 people had responded at that time, but I believe there's more now.
Okay. And the ones with the columns is the online version, the online responses
The blue one, yeah, and then the
Paragraph.
chart is,
is the Winterfest one, right, yeah. Okay.
and then if you all, you can see up behind Jamie there is that's the actual survey that we did at the event. So those are the survey results, so you can see there was actually a lot of interest. And Kelsey had to parse through all of that to create our very organized chart here.
yeah, so I will be transparent with these charts. It is a bit confusing. There was not a consistent number of responses for each question.
Okay.
I think some people were getting confused. Maybe they put 2 pink dots in one question and not, so.
Yeah.
On the first one, there's about 49 responses, and on the second one, you know, it's I believe somewhere between 42 to 49 people took the survey.
I know there was one woman who took it, and she said, I'm putting all 3 here because this is the only thing that I care about, in one of the responses, so I was, okay, I wasn't going to argue.
And on your online one, 1 is high and 5 is low, is that?
No, 1, let me pull that back up.
Yeah,
1 is they were not interested. 5 is highly interested.
okay, all right, so let's yeah, okay.
So the green box, like, that says 12, and then number 2 says 13, and number 3 says 2. What does that mean? Like right here, 12.
So those correspond to the dots on the chart. So there's green dots, pink dots, and black dots. It's folded down, I apologize. The top choice, they were
Yeah.
given dots for each one. So the top choice, they would put a green dot in that square. If it was their second choice, they would put a pink dot, and a third choice was black.
I got you.
Okay.
So my interpretation, just looking at the online survey results, just so, because I was struggling to kind of how do I interpret these to be meaningful? So I'm finding that the topics that most of the numbers skew right, you're seeing more of the numbers right, so that's meaning there's more interest in those. Is my understanding correct? So for example, water reuse, rainwater harvesting, it seems that there is interest in
Yeah.
that topic.
Lots of
on the
4s and
second page,
5s, yeah.
The back of the first page. That's, okay, just
Yeah,
want to make
so-
sure that I'm,
Same thing for
Interpreting
sustainable
correctly.
landscaping.
whereas plastic-free month seems kind of neutral across the board, not new, but it seems like there's kind of varied interest.
Yeah.
And so what are we doing with these results? Is this
Great
like what we're gonna push?
For you all to decide.
So why we did this was to kind of gauge what the community wants to see in our sustainability plan, because that's what we're working towards is our 5-year update. So what are we going to include in our sustainability plan? So we had made, in there, we have sort of these were the topics that we decided as a committee we wanted to see updated or changed or added to the plan that we have. And we wanted to sort of gauge what does the community care about, because this is our city plan. So we did this to see, you know, does that align with what we're looking at? Do we want to focus on some of these items more in the plan? And so we're going to have to evaluate, you know, what are we going to do with this data? Do we want to focus our efforts in the plan on these things because it's what the community wants? I don't know, you know, you look at the sample size, I don't know if that's the answer, but it is interesting to know. But ultimately, we're going to have to decide what we're going to put in the sustainability plan. So this is a data point for us to understand where we'll get community support and how we can also support the community in our efforts. You know, we do outreach, and so we want them to be well received when we do outreach. So you know, what do people want to learn about or know about? So yeah, we're going to have to spend some time kind of figuring out. Yeah.
Tease out some
Surveys
stuff.
say how long these people have been residents of this area?
No.
That'd be a good question to ask.
Because some of them have no idea really what's going on in this town.
Yeah, I mean, that could be an interesting point as well. You know, there's a lot of new
Somebody
people
could say,
coming
oh,
here
I
all the
want
time.
EV charter, but they have no idea what's going on with the waterway.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I found that basically growing up here, I found that a lot of people really don't know what is happening with our environment.
Yep.
And they want to institute things into our environment that really don't apply to the environment. That'd be a good question, I think, to ask is,
Like
how long have you been a
I'm-
resident?
One thing I'm totally against is the chargers. Totally against it. Why do we need chargers? Can we put a gas pump in there? I mean, you don't go to a parking garage to go charge a vehicle or to fill up. Those are private entities that should be taking care of that.
That's true. That's a good point.
Well, what's interesting is that the
It was low on the
survey,
score.
I would say, the
It was
survey
low.
data
It's
shows
low.
that there's not a whole lot of
No,
interest there.
and I don't think we should waste our money on that.
Yeah, if we're $55 million in debt, I think we should watch exactly what we do.
All right, so when does the online survey close, Kelsey?
The committee discussed at the end of December, but if you
Okay.
would like to extend it, we always can.
And you've had 25 responses so far online?
As
something like-
of Monday, when this report was put together, but it was reposted yesterday on
Right.
Facebook, so there could be more. I can't see that.
Yeah, yeah. Let it go until the end of December. Be
Has
my
it-
suggestion.
Has it gone out in CBNN? Yes, okay,
Yes.
That's where the 25 responses came from.
okay. Can we ask them to send it again, maybe next week?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm fine with closing it end of December. I'm open to other ideas, however, so.
So this chart here this is your proposals?
This is the sort of table of contents it's a draft of things that we are thinking about addressing in our sustainability plan update.
Okay.
We have a current sustainability plan that includes some of these and does not include others. So we have changed some things. But again, this is a draft that we're kind of working with to figure out where we're going to go with it.
Okay. This might be a stupid question, being I'm new to the committee, but how do you encourage people to do some of these things? How would you go about that?
So some of it is what we can do as a city from just city operations and how we run as a municipality and how we use our resources here and what effect we have just on our operations. Some of it is community outreach. So how can we give tools to our citizenry to be able to make choices or have the knowledge to empower people to do things that make our community more sustainable. Kelsey, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point. In the previous discussions the committee had about this particular kind of just outline, kind of skeleton of the plan, was trying to find a way to figure out how to divide each of these topics into city operations and also community engagement sections. And then something to keep in mind also is, although the committee is putting together, this plan and these recommendations for the city, part of it, the committee will help, make happen, but it's also the responsibility of staff to make sure that some of these more city operations focused topics, they, find their way into fruition.
Okay.
So as a next step here, we don't have the final data from the online survey from the community. We have our draft sort of table of contents things that we were considering putting in. I think we need to readdress what our table of contents, our sort of outline here is of what we want to include. Because we have had a reshuffle. And with being informed by the community survey as well. So I would suggest that at the next meeting, we reevaluate this sort of skeleton and figure out where do we go from here. I mean, Kelsey, do you have any sort of suggestion about next steps for moving this forward?
I think it's a good idea to review the kind of skeleton draft document and make sure that, we're kind of hitting all of the different areas that you guys would like to see included in the plan. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I can try to start piecing together some additional information to include there and bring it back to you. So maybe in January, coming up with a good solid draft of what we want that outline to look like. And then maybe in February, we can pick one section and say, we'll really dive into this one and move forward with that section and so on and so forth.
Okay. And as far as Keith getting the information from our last sustainability plan and the documents that we were sort of drawing on as models for what we were doing here, does
I'll
he
make
have
sure that
access to
you
that?
receive those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As I'm looking at this, this is kind of the plan that you guys have come up with to go forward.
Yes, that's the things that it's
Would-
kind of how we're organizing our ideas. You can see
Mhm.
there's the
Yeah.
broader, there's natural, and then sort of how are we breaking that down?
Would it be just redundant for us to go over this again? To maybe have more of a, instead of having so many things that we can't even get to, to have another meeting to break it down to doable targets? Because I'm seeing some of these things probably aren't doable in the near future. I'm wondering if there's maybe a meeting to take this and really target on the essentials.
Can I ask you so for example, which are not doable in your eyes? I mean, in the short term.
Well, I see the heat preparedness, water fountains. We're talking about an environment now with all types of viruses and germs and bacteria, and so I'm looking water fountains. That doesn't seem like a top priority. Cooling centers, I'm not sure what that looks like or what that cost would be. I'm really not in favor of the charging plants. I see that as a cost that the city isn't ready for. Just a few things as I was going through, I was wondering if this is really essential or do we want to have a meeting to where we can just take this and really let's shoot for targets that are very attainable.
I hear you completely, and we want a realistic plan. Absolutely, but I also think that we need to keep in mind that this is going to be at least a 5-year plan, and if we can't accomplish, let's say, cooling centers, maybe, we're not going to perhaps say in our plan, we're suggesting we build new cooling centers in the center of Cocoa Beach, but can we come up with ideas to sort of move us forward and be more prepared for the future in which we're seeing hotter
Absolutely.
temperatures? And how can we as a committee, what can we do to sort of get the information to help the city move towards that? So maybe we're not saying, have 3 new cooling centers built in 5 years, because I agree, that's not realistic. But can we have the conversation about what can we do to sort of move towards the goal where we can offer the community options? I'm just making a devil's,
Yeah,
just being devil's advocate here, because I'm not trying to advocate for cooling centers. I'm just trying to give an example of, just to kind of keep a bigger picture in mind of incremental steps we can take in the next 5 years to keep these things in mind and how we can use them when we need them. That's just sort of like, it's a bigger picture plan.
I get that, yeah.
So just
Okay.
so I'm not saying I have to have this in there, but that's kind of the mindset that I was hoping that we
Okay.
could move forward
right.
with.
Like I said, I'm new, so
No, of course.
I don't know.
And I'm not necessarily right. That's just that's my perspective on this. And I welcome everyone else's as well.
Adria, if I could add just one thing.
Yes.
One thing that the committee had discussed, kind of taking a step back from the old plan was really focusing on the 3 pillars of sustainability. So that's environmental, social, and economic. So sometimes it's easy to focus in one area, but sustainability is all of those things. So figuring out how we can best include all of those in the plan was discussed at a previous meeting.
I saw that, yeah. Okay,
So then at the next meeting, so hopefully everyone will have time to sort of review this again with fresh eyes, be informed by the community survey, be mindful of our new group working together, and come up with our sort of better draft of what we want this plan to look like, using sort of the guidelines that we've dived into with this. Does that make sense for everyone?
how do I get more clarity on some of these titles? What would I do? Who
That's a
would I
great question,
contact?
and I don't have an answer to that. Did we
There's
have, I'm
like,
trying
for
to
instance,
think.
citizen
Right.
science programs. I don't know what that means.
Right. I'm trying to think, how did we,
That's primarily, I think, more like water quality monitoring, like MRC does, Surfrider does in the city there, and there's probably some other things I'm not thinking of too. Looking at possible, looking at a tree canopy, those sorts of things. It might be able to be done by citizens.
It's just about getting citizens involved. But outside of this meeting today, if you have questions about what anything means, I'll be your point of contact. You
Okay.
guys can't communicate outside of the meeting, so
Okay.
you and I can meet, or I can ask a question. If you need anything from Adria, I can try to get that from her
Okay.
and get back to you.
All right.
so I'm struggling to recall when we did this, we had discussion on each of these topics that we were putting in. So most of the information was in the meeting of our discussion, right? Okay,
Yes.
okay.
So, reduce emissions to net zero by 2050. Is that what Cocoa Beach is shooting for?
So the city has already adopted a goal. I believe it was in 2020 or 2021?
Probably.
I believe January of 2021, the commission did agree to set the goal to reduce emissions to net zero by 2050. And that just goes along with the federal guideline of that's what the federal government's recommending with the Department of Energy.
Does the city or the federal government understand what net zero is?
Yes.
Impossible?
It seems possible. There's things that need to be taken to make sure we get there, right? So part of that may come out of this
Okay.
plan.
Just, it's one of those things I need interpretation for. All right, thank you.
Okay, so we have a plan for the plan, and we'll discuss a new draft of this at the next meeting. Okay, so then the next item on the agenda is cigarette litter prevention.
I read that on the stuff you sent me, and who came up with that idea? I was just wondering who had that idea.
For the smoking limit
For
on
the
the beach?
cigarettes on the beach.
The committee member, Jim, who
Uh-huh.
had the seat before you, he brought this to the committee.
Okay.
And we discussed it and decided that we would approach this as a kind of a two-prong approach to kind of get cigarettes off the beach as much as possible, as a health issue and a litter prevention issue. We had said as a committee that cigarette litter is sort of uniquely endemic to our beaches, that there's more cigarette butts than pretty much any other type of litter on the beach, so it's kind of in its own special category, and that there is research to support that secondhand smoke is still dangerous, especially to children, even outdoors. So based on those facts, we decided that we would support the idea to limit smoking on the beach to designated smoking sections. And so that's where this draft
I don't
ordinance
smoke,
has arisen.
and I don't smoke. I can't stand smoking. When I'm downwind from someone smoking, it's disgusting. But you have people on the sidewalks too in Cocoa Beach. So if that applies to the beach, shouldn't it be applied to the entire city, sidewalks and everything?
Sidewalks are mobile. I mean, people are passing on
But
sidewalks,
they're
and I hear
blowing
your
smoking in
point,
my
but,
face.
so we should have designated smoking areas in the whole city?
Well, that's what it sounds like.
So maybe I can provide some additional background information. If you recall, the reason that this was brought back to this committee, the commission discussed this in, I believe, January of this year, and there was some discussion. It came to them saying banning smoking in parks, and that was denied. They did not pass the resolution, but some of the commissioners did say that they may consider this if it was pertaining to the beach. So that's where this committee brought that in.
How many of the sustainability committee members, how many of them actually go to the beach frequently?
I'm there a few times a week at least.
I'm here daily.
Yeah, I'm there daily. Now, if you're there daily, then you notice that there's not a lot of cigarette butts on the beach.
I have to disagree with that. I've been picking them up for years.
Oh, yeah, they're there, but it's not like it was back in the 70s. And didn't the city buy a machine for a lot of
They
money?
did, but
to
it's,
clean up
I don't
cigarette
believe
butts?
I don't believe it's functional at this point.
They paid a lot of money for that machine. I remember that.
So this particular machine is a shared machine between the city of
Right.
Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral, and it's only permitted to be used in 3 designated areas, which is around Minuteman Causeway, at Fisher Park, and at Shepherd Park. Those are the only areas DEP will allow it at this time.
So wasn't that one of the designated spots to limit the smoking or outlaw smoking? To where it could be used?
I'm not understanding your question.
One of the areas that it was permitted to be used was Minuteman Causeway Beach, is where one of the locations that was suggested for the cigarettes to be outlawed.
I think this was pertaining to the entire beach.
Wow.
Yes.
I hate smoking, but I'm not sure if I like this. I don't like smoking at all. I'm not sure if I like this, though.
So if they have a machine that can clean up 3 areas that you're allowed to smoke, why not just make those 3 areas where you're allowed to smoke if you want to smoke on the beach?
So that machine comes with a lot of fine print, so to say. It can only, so during sea turtle season, it can't clean the entire beach. We also can't rake up the sargassum seaweed because that's beneficial to the beach. So you'd have to go around all the turtle nests and around all of that. So doable, but it's not something that's regularly done every single day. You know, we would need a whole new staff person to do something like that. It's just done after big storms if there's a lot of debris.
Well, on the record, I hate cigarette smoke. I'm not sure if it's a good idea.
So that's why we had suggested the designated smoking areas because we don't want to say smokers are not allowed at the beach. But we wanted to sort of corral where smoking would be so people could know if you wanted to stay away from smoke for your health or your children or just because you don't like it, that you know if I am at this section of the beach that won't be an issue for me. But if I want to smoke, I know I can be over here in this designated area. So that was the rationale behind that.
Okay. No smoking where the waves are good.
I'm going to put that provision in. So we had a discussion last meeting about changing some of the language to be clearer about what our intentions were. And those suggestions are in the packet here. And there's also a letter that we were sent in the packet from a citizen of Cocoa Beach regarding the draft ordinance.
It's not this draft, the other draft?
So we have this is the draft that we've been working with.
Yeah.
These are the notes
Oh,
that
okay,
we would
okay.
incorporate into this draft.
I got you.
And I added some comments that after the meeting I submitted them to Kelsey, and that, you know, they can be discussed. One thing I would say is that I think perhaps the lady was a little bit confused on, because she talks about a lot about litter, which is fine, and I agree litter is a problem, and there are more things than cigarette butts out there. But perhaps our agenda item is a little bit off because it's smoking on the beach. It's not cigarette litter prevention. That's not the focus of this ordinance. It's the focus of the smoking on the is smoking on the beach. It's noted in there that cigarette butts are a problem as far as litter is concerned, and they're you know, again, it's not the sole piece of litter that's on the beach, and there's existing ordinances, laws, local, state, and federal regarding littering or disposal of stuff in surface waters. So, and it could be certainly could be improved. Enforcement of that certainly could be improved. But I think her emphasis, I think, has been more in the letter was more on litter than anything else.
I think you're better off sticking to the litter issue, because if you go with the health issue, I wish that nobody smoked, honestly, and but I kind of was being sarcastic in saying, well, people smoke on the street and people smoke in the parks and people, where someone that's a smoker might say, wait a second, you're going to tell me not to smoke on the beach, and I could smoke on the sidewalk, and I could smoke in the park, and I could smoke in the parking lot. Someone that smokes is going to try to fight this with every angle they can, so I think the health issue probably doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
I hear you completely, and I agree with you. I see where the loophole is there. I struggle to say, because we can't control everything everywhere, that we shouldn't try to make an effort to make things better in somewhere that's special to us, somewhere that's important to our community. So I would argue that, yes, I totally hear what you're saying, but I can't agree that because we can't get 100% of what we want all the time everywhere, that we shouldn't make an effort to fix this really valuable and important part of our community.
Well, I mean, I'm for it. I hear you, and I want the same thing, but I know how people are.
I hear you.
They'll fight you. They'll fight you on it.
I know. I agree.
I mean, I can't stand this stuff myself.
Ultimately, this will go, if we move forward with a draft, it will go to the committee, to the commission.
Yeah.
And so they will be the ones to
Right. And I
have the
think
discussion.
Is there gonna be an area where people can still smoke on the beach or no?
I think that was one of the things that was open, that we would discuss it.
I mean, I've never smoked a cigarette, I've never in my life, you know? But then again, it is still legal to smoke cigarettes. I feel like there should be at least an area people should be allowed to smoke cigarettes if they want to. I mean, I'm sure there's people who like to go look at the sunset and enjoy a cigarette or smoke a cigar. And I know cigars weren't banned because that's not a cigarette butt.
Yeah, and it's also required state law, the state law that allowed local governments to regulate smoking on the beach, exempted cigars and exempted e-cigarettes.
So you use cigarettes and all that. I just,
Cigars smell worse.
To me, a cigar is far worse than a cigarette, but whatever.
Our church has 2.5 acres, and no one's allowed to smoke on those grounds. You cannot smoke on any church property.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a problem with telling them they can't smoke. I have a problem with pushback. You know,
I agree that this is a steep hill to climb
it is.
to put
Yes,
this,
it is.
to put
'Cause
this into
smokers
effect.
are
But
pretty.
it has been done elsewhere.
They want to put their tent up on the beach, and they want to kick back in their chair, and they want to enjoy the beach, and they want to light up their cigarette, and they're going to push back. And I hear you got to start somewhere. I understand that. I just trying to understand if it's a mountain worth climbing. That's all I'm thinking.
If you recall from a previous meeting, and I know you weren't here, the town of, is it Indian Harbor Beach?
Yes,
in the Atlantic, yeah.
Yes.
Indian Harbor.
Indian Harbor Beach, they've implemented a similar ordinance, and what they did is they set up designated areas west of the boardwalks over to the beach, and had signage and receptacles there. So it has been done locally.
And again, they have the exemption for cigars and e-cigarettes, which again,
Never
is
hands.
compliance with the state law.
Well, I always like to look at every side of things, and I love getting things done. I love it. But I'm not trying to be a stickler.
No, I love to hear the realistic points of view of what this actually means, and I appreciate that. So what do we want to do next? I think is my question.
I mean, in here it says note 1, limit regulation to public beach dune crossovers. So that means that if this was approved, they're allowed to smoke on the crossovers to the beach?
No, this would not,
Or smoking
Right.
prohibited on city beach?
slow smoking would be prohibited on the crossovers and in the dunes.
I think the crux of the situation is going to be the designated areas.
Which would be in the
That's-
parking lot.
Right, so where are those, what do those look like?
Right,
Is it
well-
our duty to figure that out, or is there some other regulating body that is going to determine that? Is that included in the ordinance? I don't know that.
And who cleans up the parking lot?
City.
The beach accesses are pretty filthy.
That's true, too.
So who cleans that up?
I've done it many, many times.
Hey, I have too. Yeah, I
All the dirty
mean,
diapers with the cigarette butts.
yeah,
Maybe this should be
and
a
all other
survey.
things.
Yeah, it's also,
I go to the beach every day, every
people
single
decide.
day. I walk over there every morning, and it's unbelievable the things you find in that parking lot. Some of which I won't touch.
So as far as the committee versus somebody else designating areas, if the committee doesn't feel comfortable doing that, what I've seen done in the past is saying, we wish to have these things included, and then leave it up to the recreation director or the city manager or the public works director to designate these areas and define them, figure out where they're going to be. Because they have more expertise in that probably.
I would feel more comfortable with that because I do not have an expertise in
right.
the entire landscape of all of our beaches, so for them to, and, flow of tourism and people on the beaches and everything else, I would prefer that. That's my opinion. But again, any other opinions here? Welcome.
Yeah, You know, we can, you know, Jamie mentioned coconuts basically under Minuteman. That might be an appropriate spot. I would say that the other city parks are probably not, but, I think coconuts might
If you
be
were
the
gonna
spot.
allow an area, it would be Minuteman.
Yeah,
Because, I do see families there, but you go to Minuteman Causeway to go party, get drunk, and have fun.
Yeah.
You got Beach Shack on one side, you got coconuts on the other.
yeah.
It's a bar atmosphere, people smoke, they're doing whatever. That would be the designated area, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, there's 15 bars in that downtown area.
yeah.
And then you have,
Outside of that-
KBB and all your cleanup crews, they all focus in that one little area, it stays clean and everybody's happy. You can still go to the beach and smoke a cigarette.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
I can't disagree with that.
So what I would suggest then for our next steps is we go through this list here that we have, the comments, decide if we want to, we had said we wanted to include these, let's just make sure that these are, the language is going to go into the draft that we have, and then if we all agree, we can move this forward, or doesn't did we said the city attorney should have a look at it, or?
Yeah, I think once we get a good draft together, the city manager needs to look over this.
Okay.
Right.
First, and then send to the city attorney. I just want to clarify one thing. So I'm hearing a difference between last meeting and this meeting. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. So now we're talking about designating just one area being Minuteman
Well,
Causeway.
last meeting, I said, why can't it be the first 20 feet of the beaches? Nobody really said anything except for what's his face when he's like, yeah, that whatever. But I mean, if they're saying a designated area, now I just learned that we have a tool that can clean the beach, sort of. I mean, I feel like it's still fair for people to be able to smoke.
It picks up big stuff. It doesn't get all the cigarette butts.
Yeah.
I get it.
In fact, when I've seen it, it leaves more cigarette
But
butts
if you want,
behind than
but
it does when.
we do beach cleanups all the time. There's always, groups doing beach cleanups. So just focus the beach cleanup right at the end of Minuteman, the one place where you're only allowed to smoke.
I go to all the beaches, I surf all the beaches, and I'll tell you, the only beach I see cigarette butts on is Minuteman Causeway.
Uh-huh.
When I go down to 8th Street, you barely ever see a cigarette butt, hardly ever. And if I do, I pick it up. I just don't see I don't see what you guys are seeing. I guess that they're going
Down by the pier too, I see.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, the
Shepherd,
pier, yes,
Pier.
the pier, yes.
Shepherd's
Here.
loaded.
Anywhere where there's bars.
Anywhere you got people, lots of people, you're gonna have cigarette butts, but most of the beaches, you don't see it. Even 16th Street that gets a crowd, there's hardly any cigarettes down there. Go down to the beach and just look around. It's not a lot on the
Those
beach.
are the less busy areas though, and I don't think there's a lot of smoking happening there just because there's not a lot of people there on a regular basis. Like go on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. and there's nobody
Yeah.
down there.
So would you make it no smoking on those beaches?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know that,
When there's not a problem really on those beaches?
I don't want to make a problem there.
There's Joe
I don't want
Schmo
it to be-
fisherman that goes down the beach every Saturday, sets up his lawn chair, puts his rod out, has a cigarette.
I don't know that
I'm
the
trying to
beach
fight for
rangers
the
are,
benefits of
of
people,
course.
too.
I don't know that the beach rangers are going to be actively patrolling Fisherman Joe at 10 a.m. on Saturday, standing alone
But
on
he's
the beach.
breaking the law.
It's true. Agreed.
He's breaking the law, because I made him break the law.
Well,
I'm just saying.
right, I hear you.
I'm just
I hear
saying. It's a big issue. It's bigger than just making a plan, it's a big issue. You're gonna get pushback, I know that.
I'm all for certain beaches being able to smoke. Minuteman, the pier.
So let me ask a question then to the committee. Do we want to be specific about these being the more populous beaches?
I would say so.
And then that's going to take some, how do we define that?
You just actually designate the areas. Name them. Because those are the areas that are infested. And that's where you're really gonna pick up the secondhand smoke, because it's a lot of it. And what about smoking pot? They smoke pot on the beach too.
That
that a
already breaking
cigarette?
the law. That's already-
There's already rules about that.
It doesn't have a filter.
You could smell that a mile away. I mean, I'm just giving you the big picture, that's all.
Yeah.
Giving you the big picture. It's not as simple as the words on the page.
I think this group has always considered having areas designated that you can smoke in. But, again, there's kind of making the choice is going to be difficult for us. And again, it's something or other that I guess we need to discuss further.
I don't think it's too big for us to take our time to get it right.
I would like to think a little bit more about the sort of drawing the lines of where we want to regulate.
Well, right here, it says, note 2, we may want to consider deleting designated areas in the section unless we want to identify certain areas of the beach for smoking.
Right, so that's when
So
we were
if I was
saying,
gonna say, if I'm gonna identify an area for people to be allowed to smoke, it's gonna be by coconuts and by the pier.
But the bars are gonna fight you on that. Because they want people to come.
No, I'm saying they can smoke there.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, they can. Oh,
They
yeah,
can,
that's
I'm not
good.
saying no, they can't.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
I'm saying they can smoke there.
Right,
Gotcha.
those would be the
Because
designated.
Beach Shack is like, if I know, is like the only bar on the beach that you can still smoke inside of the bar.
Wow. That's because they don't serve food.
Okay.
That's just, I don't know.
Okay.
all right, so let me ask a question. Do we want to approach this then with the saying we are prohibiting smoking on all beaches except in designated areas, and those designated areas happen to be at the end of Minutemen or wherever else we decide? Or do we want to say that at these particular beaches, smoking is prohibited?
If you wanna
And
smoke,
so then, for example, your example with the, someone who's there
I
on a
would,
morning and, they're not breaking the law because it's not a crowded beach or whatnot. So do we want to take the full approach and then designate, or do we want to just designate specific beaches to be prohibited? That's kind of a
I would-
fundamental question.
to be honest, I understand where he's coming with fishing and all that, and he's minding his own business and he's cleaning up his trash. But I would say more, you have designated areas for where I can take my dog.
Right.
Have designated areas for where you can smoke on the beach.
Agreed.
That way you can focus on, if there's gonna be any litter, it's gonna be at these beaches, the cleanups.
Right. And if you don't want to be around the smoke.
You ever see a dog at 2nd Street?
I don't go to 2nd Street.
Well,
I usually go to 13th,
I live off
or
of
I'll go to
Minuteman
9th.
Causeway. They don't follow the law. They walk their dogs on 2nd
Oh,
Street.
correct. Nobody's, like you said, there's
They're gonna
people
smoke
smoking
wherever
pot
they
down
want.
there.
They're smoking pot on the beach. They're getting drunk on the beach.
That's
Yeah.
legal?
It's a nightmare.
What?
It's a nightmare.
Go take some night vision goggles and just scan the beach and see what you see
Oh, yeah.
happening.
It's all kinds of stuff going on.
Enforcement is always a problem. It has been, it would be with this regardless.
I
But,
think,
you need to get the
I
flagrant
like the
ones out of it.
designated spots, to tell you the truth, but I don't know. I don't know. But then if you designate coconuts for smoking, then you're telling everyone else all the way down to 16th Street that they can't smoke.
Correct.
And they're not the ones littering the beach.
I get it.
Maybe the committee needs to go for a walk on the beach. See what the problem really is down there.
I think we need to just figure out how are we addressing, I think we're back to that fundamental question of, are we designating just a few areas for smoking, or are we designating just a few beaches to be prohibited for smoking? Which approach do we prefer?
I'm for the designated areas for smoking.
How about you? What do you think? Designated areas for smoking or designated prohibited areas?
It's not that simple, because I still go back to Joe Schmo, who's not polluting the beach. And then I don't know.
But
It's a struggle. Maybe I'll just sit out on that vote.
Well, unfortunately, we got that 1% that is everywhere, and
There's areas that are definitely.
Should we wait for him to be attended? The other,
I would like to hear his input. He did have some strong opinions about this, and
so why don't we push this till the next meeting, as long as everybody's here?
Okay, so we want to,
That way you have everybody on this board's thought.
give this some more consideration of how we want to address it and get Waylon's input as well.
I think we
So
can
that's-
wait because it's not a critical matter. I mean, the ship's not sinking.
Okay. Okay, so then the plan is we will give this more consideration and pick it up again at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
I'll give this way more thought.
Okay. So will I.
And I would suggest also reading through kind of the specific language and the specific recommendations, because maybe, you know, wording something differently may change what something means and make it more palatable for everybody.
Right.
Definitely.
Okay, excellent. So then we will move on in the agenda to new business. There is none listed, but Kelsey, would this be an appropriate place for me to bring up the Freedom 7 presentation? Or
You can. I did notice new business is on there twice. That's my apologies, but sure, Adria, that would be a good time.
Okay, we have always, not always, I take that back. We have for the past few years, as long as I have been here at least, Freedom 7, the sixth graders who are working on exhibition projects. They are focused on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They do a very large project. They have come here every year to present that project to the committee, and whoever else decides to come. And I would like to invite them to come back again. They usually come at the early May meeting. So like, if the committee would like that as well, I will extend that invitation to them.
Okay. That's great.
So then I will reach out to them and see if they are on board and let everybody know.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Did you say at the May meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no other new business on here. We will move on to committee member announcements. Are there any announcements from any members? Anything to share?
Good.
Yes.
Apparently there's somebody trying to push an agenda that they're going to discuss tomorrow at the meeting about the boat ramp on 520, trying to make it only for kiteboarding and windsurfing, and from what I've been told. So that's always been a boat ramp, and what I've also been told is the
Yeah.
grant that's for that place is to redo the boat ramp.
Yeah.
Now, it's probably going to make the area a little bit easier and accessible for kiteboarders because it's a huge area, but
I heard something a little bit different about that they're feeling that the way the boat ramp is proposed to be designed would somewhat eliminate the kite surfing folks, and they want their corner preserved, I think, more than have it totally kite surfing. That's what I've seen elsewhere.
I feel there's going to be, I believe, a lot of people tomorrow at the meeting
Yeah.
on that whole boat ramp
A
issue.
lot of people use that boat ramp.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Even bad shape it is.
I would agree entirely. I think that was built with a state grant many years ago. I remember when it was built, and I doubt that can close that to boats. So I think that.
And I believe the grant is intended to redo a boat ramp.
Yeah, exactly. And I do, and again, I think the problem is more that the kiteboarders feeling that the design would not provide them with any space to use the area, which they do, as you're probably well aware.
They just need a parking lot.
Yeah,
They walk down the boat ramp, launch their
do their
kites and
thing,
go thing.
or one of the beaches to either side.
They
Correct.
usually launch off the beach.
Yeah, any case.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think.
I mean, I have no
for us,
problems with
that's
kiteboarders and windsurfers there, but when I
Does
heard
that
them saying,
fall under
oh,
us?
Yeah, I don't think, from what I've read, and again, this is memory, so count on it that way, that the problem is that the kiteboarders feel that they're getting pushed out.
They need a setup spot.
Yeah,
That's where they stage.
Yep.
And that's they do need that.
yeah,
And that's what they're afraid of. They're going to get pushed out.
right, yeah,
And right where they were going to put the gazebo is right where they stage.
yep,
And that's what their big beef was.
Yeah, that's right. Now that you said that, that's what I recall seeing, so. Again, it's a design thing. It's not that they want to close the ramp. They just want their piece of the pie, so.
They just shouldn't build a gazebo. They don't need one.
And then are we allowed as the committee to so it's gonna happen, they're gonna redo the ramp. But are we allowed to say, hey, you should do this project, start this project around this time of the year?
So what I can tell you is the grant that project is being funded through has a very strict timeline, and they don't really like to offer extensions. So, to get the money, it needs to be done in a certain period of time. and it's not-
What about the people who have franchise agreements and running businesses out of that place and then they can't go to work?
Yeah, so I definitely hear you. I'm not the project manager. That's something that would be a great thing to bring up at the meeting tomorrow. It's at 6 PM in this room.
All right,
Yeah.
They have to move on it.
6 p.m.?
It's gonna run out of time.
Right before the commission meeting.
A lot of issues.
Such is life.
Politics.
It's a city.
It's all about money.
All right, if there are no other announcements, there is no public present for public comment this evening.
We did
You
enter
did.
the.
Oh,
this-
yes, we do have a message from
And
a member.
on to this message, because of her paragraph, this lady is not wrong. She's saying
About which-
cigars produce, it's, like she said, and I read it, it says the beginning of the ordinance says it all, U.S. Surgeon General, poisons of secondhand smoke, asthma attacks, blah, blah, blah. So do cigars, so do e-cigarettes, so do bonfires, fireworks, everything that everybody does on the beach.
I completely agree, and I give the same argument for that as I
So that's
did
kind of why
before.
I've gotten more to where it's like, okay, well, maybe, okay, you gotta have at least maybe a certain beaches where you can go smoke. Maybe not every freaking beach, like Joe Schmo wants to go fishing I don't know.
I
That's why
hear
I'm not
you,
the
but
boss.
we can only do what's in the scope of our power to do. So we
get
can't
it.
do anything about cigars. We can't do anything about these other things. So I can't in a good way say, well, because I can't fix it all, I'm not gonna fix anything. I
No,
can't.
I understand that.
I can't do
I
that.
understand that, but I mean, she does have a valid point there.
Yes.
Because the claim right here says, the ordinance says, U.S. Surgeon General poisons of secondhand smoke. Well, you get secondhand smoke from cigars. You get secondhand smoke from anything that's burning, any of that stuff. So ban it all.
We can't.
So that's what I'm saying. It's kind of biased just to
Well,
say.
Yeah.
that's kind of like my
Smoke.
thing with walking on the sidewalk. I mean,
Yes.
where do you start and where do you end? I mean,
It's a great question.
I'm just agreeing with the lady from, like she says, it's right there.
I don't know if
And-
it's a hill worth climbing.
Whatever.
Well, we will discuss. We will give it more thought and we will discuss. Okay, so we have her comment logged, and so then we will tentatively meet on January 3rd, in the new year. This should be 2024.
See
Kelsey?
you next year.
Oh, yes. Always do that, I'm sorry.
At 6:30 in this room tentatively. So the meeting is adjourned.
I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, thank you for your